Mr. Chairman, we stand on the threshold of a transformational moment in the history of intercity passenger rail service in America. There was an earlier such moment. That was Amtrak, creation of the Passenger Rail Corporation in 1970, when the freight rail interests of America gradually had been abandoning passenger service, discontinuing lines, discontinuing less than carload service, discontinuing the overnight railway post office service aboard intercity passenger rail. As the RPO was discontinued, the passenger portion of the rail service became unprofitable, and the railroads, one by one, appealed to the Interstate Commerce Commission for discontinuance authority to discontinue service on that portion of the line. And gradually, passenger rail service disappeared from the landscape until finally the federal government was left holding the bag, if you will, and created, through act of Congress, the passenger rail service we know today as Amtrak. But over the intervening years, Amtrak was never given the funding it needed to improve the rail bed, to improve the rolling stock, to operate independently from freight rail service on the lines and corridors where passenger service operated. And especially over the last dozen years, we've seen declining investment in Amtrak's operations. And in the last 6 years, we've had at least one bankruptcy budget submitted by the administration, candidly stated so by the Secretary of Transportation. But with a combination of Republicans and Democrats looking to the future, we've been able to just keep Amtrak's nose above water over these intervening years. Today, we change that model. With passage of the Passenger Rail Investment Improvement Act, we will transform the future of intercity passenger rail in America. Last week, we heard all this morning from the one-minute speeches, price of a gallon of gas breached $4 a gallon for the first time in history. The American Automobile Association says gas prices have gone up more than 10% in the last month and $1 in the past year. And those prices are reverberating across the nation, changing people's travel patterns, changing their travel habits, causing them to look more to transit. And transit across the country has exploded in its growth. Last year we added more than 1 million new passengers to transit services a day across this country for 375 million new transit trips last year. Amtrak has similarly experienced enormous growth. Our airlines are cutting back. 8 airlines since December of last year have shut down. One filed for bankruptcy, largely because of rising fuel costs. Fuel now represents 40% of the airline industry's expenses. A small increase in gas prices. I know that $1 a barrel increase in price of oil for Northwest Airlines causes an increase in cost to that airline of $42 million. You can increase that by 50% more for Delta, double that for United and American. That means less competition, less service, less mobility, and higher prices for our fellow citizens. Department of Transportation says vehicle miles traveled in March fell 4.3% from last year. That's the first time that we've seen a drop in miles traveled on public roads in over 30 years.
Minutes, is that what the gentleman choose to use?
I yield myself 2 additional minutes.
2 additional minutes for the gentleman is recognized.
The Center for Housing Policy says that working families in large metropolitan areas spend nearly 1/3 of their incomes on transportation. That means families are not able to buy homes, they're not saving, they're not investing in their children's education, they're spending it on transportation. And people are beginning to realize, just as they did in the days after September 11, that Amtrak service to move people from one city to another is vitally important. One full passenger train can take 250 to 350 cars off the road. Intercity passenger rail removes 8 million cars from the highways every year and eliminates the need for 50,000 fully loaded passenger airline trips each year. Amtrak in the Northeast Corridor has 56% of the air rail market between Washington, D.C. and New York City, 43% of the market between New York and Boston. And now we come to the American public, perhaps 20 years too late, but just in time, with the legislation before us today that will upgrade passenger rail intercity service. $14.9 billion authorized in this bill to rebuild Amtrak, construct high-speed rail corridors across the nation. And I won't go into the specifics of it. At this point, I simply want to express my deep appreciation to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Micah, who extended his hand of cooperation, his enthusiasm for rebuilding passenger rail service in this country with some innovative ideas and a willingness to join hands and bring a truly bipartisan bill to the House floor. And to Ms. Brown of Florida, the chair of the Rail Subcommittee, who has been Amtrak's most vigorous cheerleader, advocate, did a Harry Truman-style whistle-stop tour on Amtrak. I yield myself an additional 30 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for an additional 30
when
seconds.
it was just about to go under, and joined forces with bipartisan initiative to save the funding for Amtrak. And Mr. Schuster from Pennsylvania, who has been a true partner in shaping this legislation today, his ideas and his contribution have been enormously valuable. We bring to our colleagues, to America, an opportunity to join the rest of the world in world-class intercity high-speed passenger rail service. And again, I thank the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Micah.